Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, a couple of minutes late tonight, but I did get my Wi-Fi fixed, so we should be back to normal speed. I'm thinking that my daily news wrap-up was lagging a little bit last night, so hopefully we won't have that problem again. But here we are on July the 28th in the year of our Lord 2026. So we've got some great information for you tonight. Let me go ahead and click Murtech on Rumble and jump over here to my Rumble channel. This is the video we're going over tonight, episode 1992. Let's jump into this. And Susie Pohl and Glow has joined us already this evening. I'll get back with you here in a moment, Glow. Let me slide down here and click the Show More button to expand out the description box. And we have information from Dan Bongino, ACLJ Sekulow, Dr. Steve Turley, and Wendy Bell Radio. But before we get into that, I do want to give a shout out here. It looks like Glow has already given me a comment. Good evening, all. Rumble number 3. Good job. Show shared on Facebook, X, Truth, and Wendy's Locals page. Great. Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. All right. We do have Butch Costa just started following my channel. And Black Horse 7 just started following my channel. And Pope's CU456 just started following my channel. And Web T Wood 652 just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. All right, Debbie BS reposted my episode 1991. Glow commented on my episode 1992, this one here tonight. Debbie BS, Glow, Viper Senior, and Cotton Ball 31 commented on my episode 1991. Susan 080 commented on my extra 773B. Glow commented on my extra 773C. Debbie BS commented on my extra 774A. Debbie BS, Foxy Grandma, and Cotton Ball 31 commented on my extra 774B. And Susan 080 commented on my extra 773B. I guess I should have had that up there. I guess I got that one in twice. But at any rate, thank you so much for your comments and reposting my videos. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. So let me go ahead and give this a thumbs up. There we go. Okay, well, let's get into this. Okay, Dan Bongino, Dear Diary. They lied about everything, episode 2562. Now, you know, they keep talking about Fauci's diary, Fauci's diary, Fauci's diary. And I'm wondering how they got a hold of Fauci's diary, because I've not heard of anything where they've actually gone and, you know, had a search warrant to search his house for his diary. And I did a little bit of research on it, and I guess it's some documents, 11,000 documents or some shit that they got a hold of, the Senate got a hold of, Rand Paul and others. And some of this information was in those documents that was in the computer system, you know, on his work computer. Was some of the information that I got, and they gleaned this information out of notes that he had kept on his work computer to create his memoir, supposedly. But, you know, that doesn't sound like it, you know, where you go, Dear Diary, you know, I screwed them over today. They thought this, and it was actually that. That I don't like it that they do that, because it's misleading, and that's just going to let the mainstream media and the liberal assholes just say, you know, this is bullshit because they don't have a diary. I don't know. I don't frickin' get it. Okay. But at any rate, let's go see what Sean has to say on the Dan Bongino Show.
There it is. There's the opening bell. It is time to get into the Fauci diary. This guy, let me just, 30,000 feet. We'll start here. Let me get my thing ready here. Was there anybody during COVID who was more full of shit than Anthony Fauci? Anybody? I mean, maybe like Andrew Cuomo, right? The virus does not come out after 12 midnight or you have to stay home. The guy was an absolute mess. Everyone taking their marching orders from that gremlin from what, Harry Potter's bank? Is that Fauci? That's those gremlins. They look like him. The elves. He looks like one of them. Or Dobby. Dobby looked more like former New York Giants coach Tom Coughlin, if you ask me. But anyway, Anthony Fauci, the experts. That was one of my favorite things.
Okay, but I want to go ahead and jump into this. And the other thing that I thought was very interesting about the COVID virus is that when you walked into a restaurant, you had to wear your mask. Or if you got up to go to the restroom, you had to wear your mask. But when you were sitting down at the table, you didn't have to wear your mask. So I guess it only traveled like 4 feet in the air. It didn't travel. So I guess if you were to crawl around all day on your hands and knees, you wouldn't have to wear a mask. I never tried that, but I always thought that was very interesting. Unbelievable. So we were at a restaurant one time and sitting down and eating, and I got up and threw my trash away, and a waitress came over and said, "You need your mask if you're going to get up." And I thought, "Are you freaking kidding me?" But at any rate, let's continue.
Too, in the COVID era, trust the expert. They told me you must trust the experts. And I said, well, it's interesting because how come I can't ask the experts a question? How come the experts can't demonstrate their expertise? Well, those seem to be reasonable things to ask. No, you can't do that. It's misinformation. You're going to kill grandma. It's going to be a super spreader event, right? And then what did we see in the spring of 2020? All the riots, right? The protests, everybody in close quarters, Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, the whole 9 yards. And you had people coming out and saying, well, you could protest that, but you can't protest reopening the country. As if the virus chooses who it's going to infect, smartest virus in the world. And those of us in the world who, have a working brain, have a couple brain cells that are rubbing together, create a little heat, create a little fire, create a little energy, right? Get you going, a little enthusiasm down the Haley Stevens Road. Those of us have a working brain and an IQ above that of the average Somali or Canadian for that matter. And I'm going to get so much crap for that. Stop making fun of Canada. No, I can't help it. I can't help it. I can't help it. Those of us who have a working brain and a couple brain cells that, we could rub together to make some heat, realize this guy was full of crap right off the bat. 6 feet. Where'd you come up with that one? You got to stay 6 feet apart, not 5 feet apart. You know why that happened, right? Because they had to implement the same rules all around the world. And it's hard in places that use the metric system to convert 5 feet into meters. It would have been like 1.722 or something. But 6 feet isn't even 2 meters. Yeah. There was no rhyme or reason about the distance. Okay. About the social distancing. Remember the one way if you guys lived in a state that did this, remember the one-way shopping aisles? That was a thing in New York for a little bit. Actually, really funny is I went up to upstate and I grabbed a pair of sunglasses, these party or whatever Memorial Day, and you can flick them on and they flash red, white, and blue. I actually pulled people over in a supermarket for going the wrong way in the one-way aisle. And I went behind them and turned them on and went, woo! And they turned around like thinking Ric Flair was behind them, right? The nature boy. And they were like, what? I said, do you know why I'm pulling you over? He looked at me like I was crazy. And in upstate, everyone has a gun. So you see them slowly start to reach for it. And I'm like, no, I'm just kidding. But I did actually do that. It's kind of funny. With the one-way shopping aisles, the social distancing, hands.
Okay, the thing that got me was really interesting to me is when you went through the checkout and they had the plexiglass up there. Okay, and you had to go down to the end of the aisle to, use your credit card or whatever. Hey, it's a frickin' airborne virus, supposedly. So this plexiglass, I don't know, it might prevent, a customer from spitting, on the cashier, but it's an airborne virus. Okay, so you breathe out on this side, it's going to go through the central air or the heating system, the HVAC, and going to be on your side of that plexiglass. That's the craziest thing I ever saw.
Sanitizer everywhere. It's like, yeah, I get it. We should want to be clean. That's okay. But it got ridiculous. You can't gather in groups of more than 10. So you know what we did on Long Island when we were protesting this in the fall, early winter of 2020. Us, the whole loud majority group, with thousands of people, took a picture with a giant sign that says, we identify as a group of 10 people or less. And then we sent it to Andrew Cuomo as a Christmas card. It was nice. We tormented that guy. That guy hated us. And then he got ran out of the office. And now the bucktooth Botox bandit of Buffalo, Kathy Hochul, the Wicked Witch of the Northeast. She's the new governor of New York. Horrible. She's horrible. She can't even get... What happened?
I was going to say, did you see what Kevin posted?
No.
Where she's like helping at the train, the train track, I guess, or something. She's like, dink, 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 like...
Oh, God. I can't with this woman. She's grilling in a white dress. She can't get Buffalo Bills fans to chant, let's go Buffalo. Let me just explain something to you. We're way off but like, Kathy Hochul is so unlikable and so like not charismatic. If you can't get a group of Buffalo Bills fans to chant, let's go Buffalo. This is a fan base, by the way, that lights themselves on fire and jumps through folding tables at their tailgate party. They will do anything for their team. And she was, let's go Buffalo. And nobody chanted with her because nobody likes Kathy Hochul. How does she keep getting elected? New York City. That's how. Democrats would vote for anybody. They'd vote for a pair of sweaty gym socks if it ran as a Democrat. It's the truth. I'm from there. I know about it. It's crazy. It's embarrassing. New York used to be a cool, nice place to be, and now it's a hellhole. And New York was one of those states that fell right in line with that little gremlin, Anthony Fauci. Anthony Fauci, his stupid, gritty, grovelly New York Senator Paul, you have no idea what you are talking about, right? You have to stay 6 feet apart. It hurts me to do that. Fauci lied about everything. We knew he was lying because it never made any logical sense. But he wrote in the diary. He has an actual log that we now have access to. Dear diary, I was lying about quite literally everything. Let's start here. Breitbart article. Fauci diary shows he lied to the public about the coronavirus fatality rate. So we were told at the very beginning, super scary virus. And I remember listening to Dan Bongino back in the day going, hold on, wait a minute. Why are we getting scared? We don't know the real fatality rate here. We don't know what the R0 is. We don't know a lot. Everyone's getting scared, hiding under their couch like that episode of SpongeBob. Remember that episode of SpongeBob where he stays in his house with the chip and the napkin and the penny, and those were his friends, and he never went outside, indoors. Remember that? Where I think he busted his ass skiing, and that was the whole thing. He was afraid to go outside. Everyone turned into that. Making friends with napkins and potato chips and pennies.
I'll tell you what, I think that was the best time, really. I mean, because it didn't keep me from going anywhere I wanted to go, the grocery store or Walmart or whatever. And the streets were pretty much deserted, okay? Didn't have to wait in the line for traffic or anything. I thought it was fantastic. As far as that is concerned, I'm sorry that it, passed on because, man, it was great. You could go anywhere you wanted to go, no problem, no traffic hassles, nothing. It was fantastic as far as I'm concerned.
I knew people who were some of the most devout Republicans, and they got totally emasculated by this thing. Oh my gosh, I don't want to go. I don't want to get this far. Why would you still go out? Why are you traveling? Because it's a cold. I'm not saying it wasn't serious. And I'm not saying it didn't kill people. And I'm not saying it couldn't have been a serious infection. But to shut down everything, the schools, the jobs, small businesses, you had a death clock on all the major mainstream media networks. And you had this guy essentially calling the shots and lying about it. So he admits in his diary, the Fauci diary shows he lied to the public about the coronavirus fatality rate. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be looking at this going, all right, you're pointing out that he lies. We already know that he lies. What are we going to do about it? Well, unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there's not really much that we can do except hold him accountable in the court of public opinion, because he does have that auto pen pardon. And I know a lot of people want to say, well, Trump said they're invalid. And I get it. And I'm all for looking into the legalities of an auto pen pardon, which I don't believe there's a challenge there, unfortunately, because the Constitution, believe it or not, the Constitution, if you read the pardon clause, the Constitution doesn't even say that a pardon even has to be signed by a president, right? Technically. They do that because it serves as a receipt. The only, I think, angle that could be challenged with regards to like the Fauci pardons and some of these auto pen pardons isn't the auto pen itself, but it's the fact that like the crimes that they're being pardoned of weren't specified. You know, even when Jimmy Carter gave out blanket pardons for Vietnam draft dodgers, they were granted pardons for draft dodging. These don't have specific crimes. It's just like, yeah, anything that happened between this time and this time, you know, pardon.
And you know that we've talked about that before, and that it's the same thing with declassifying documents and things. Okay, you don't have to have a signed document for that. It just says the president has the authority to give a pardon, and the president has the authority to declassify things. So you know that it doesn't have to be signed. It doesn't have to be just a big announcement about it. He's right, and I've talked about this before.
But the auto pen itself isn't as unethical and as effed up as this is. I don't think the auto pen pardons are going to get overturned because they were signed with an auto pen. And I know that's not what anybody wants to hear, and I'm going to get roasted for it. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm just reading from the Constitution. It doesn't make a specification. The president's power to pardon is so broad, it doesn't make a specification. So unfortunately, at the federal level, there may not be much that can happen to Anthony Fauci regarding what he did during the COVID years. However, if he is called to testify again, and I think he's supposed to appear again soon, if he's called to testify again and he lies again, then you can go after him federally, 100%.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that there. This will be in my daily news wrap-up, so you can watch some more of this if you join me there. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from the Dan Bongino Show. This is Sean Farish covering for Dan. He's out this week. He's going to be covering for him, I believe, yesterday, today, tomorrow, and Thursday, and Friday. I don't know if they won't have a show or have a best of or whatever. But that's where we are right there. Okay, so let's jump back here. And let's see what ACLJ Sekulow has to say about shocking Fox News interview exposes DSA plan. Okay, the Democrat Socialist Agenda, whatever. Democrat Socialist
An oligarchy. America. The Democrat Socialist America leader, one of the co-chairs, was making the rounds and appearing on the news, was on Shannon Bream, asking questions. Shannon Bream decided, hey, let's do a little back and forth here.
Rapid fire.
Let's do a little true or false. Bream brought it. You got to hear this because, of course, it does not disappoint. Bite one.
So we're going to put up on the screen a few of the things that are part of your platform. And I want to ask you, just give me sort of a true or false on these. Abolish the Senate.
True.
Okay. Replace the presidency and Supreme Court as we now know them.
Yep.
Abolish ICE.
Absolutely.
Abolish borders and give amnesty to anyone currently in the U.S. illegally.
As a long-term plan, yep.
Defund the Pentagon.
Absolutely.
Abolish prisons, at least in large part.
Yeah, again, that as part of a long-term program, yeah.
Okay, so no prisons. Government or public ownership of most large corporations.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you're talking about an actual political platform right now that does sound shocking, but remember, some of the top leaders of the Democratic Party right now, the shining stars of the party, are at least associated with the Democratic Socialists of America or are card-carrying members of the Democratic Socialists of America. So again, Not just things you typically expect. Abolish ICE. You hear that a lot. Not shocked about that. Then you go, okay, how about let's abolish the borders, all borders. Okay, they say yes to that. And then you get to things like, okay, we've heard about abolishing the Senate. We know that's one of the ones they've been talking about a lot. Then the Pentagon, the presidencies, and then a long-term plan, no prisons.
This is why we have to point this out and why we have to talk about this, is not just because this is some radical idea that's floating around and these people have no chance. They're running as third-party independents that are never going to even get a percentage of the vote in these elections. These are now people that are a part of the DSA using the Democrat Party as their vessel to get elected. And we know that there's going to be a lot of new members of Congress that are a part of this in the next Congress. So starting in November.
Yeah, I had a question about that. Because a lot of people would say, well, how is this any different, I guess? So this would be essentially the same idea of like a libertarian running as a Republican.
Right.
Because people will go, well, this isn't a third party, but in some ways it is. But that third party is somehow getting a stranglehold on the mainstream Democratic Party.
That's right. And they have used the DNC, the Democrat Party, as its vessel, or almost as if like the Tea Party were a full-on party that decided then, hey, let's go within the Republican Party and get elected because we believe that we want change. Now, the difference in a Tea Party movement, which was saying we want less government in our lives, we want to get back to the roots, and we want to cling to the Constitution. This is a movement that wants to completely destroy the Constitution. And here's what I find so fascinating about this, because they are willing to be very honest, which is almost more scary that they are out
appreciate
front.
It a little bit more. At least there's no hiding.
Right. But then when you start to look at even what they put forward on their website, this is one thing about how they describe themselves. What is democratic socialism? We believe there are many avenues that feed into the democratic road to socialism. Our vision pushes further than historic social democracy and leaves behind authoritarian visions of socialism in the dustbin of history. So they're trying to differentiate themselves and say, I don't know, the Soviet Union or things of that nature, or Cuba even, where it's authoritarian socialism, if you will. But the problem is when you look at what they're doing, they take away all the constitutional safeguards against authoritarianism. They take away 3 equal branches of government by eliminating the presidency, even destroying the bicameral system within the Congress and the legislature, and the Supreme Court they want to get rid of. But at the same time, they're going to give more power to a unicameral system, which would be an expanded House of Representatives. This is the same type of people like Bernie Sanders that preach against an oligarchy. If you do this, if you tear down all of our constitutional framework and you give more power to the House of Representatives, and it's only the House of Representatives, you will end up with nothing but an oligarchy, a rule of a group of people that become authoritarian because there is no checks on them at all.
And while Will says it very well, I think you should hear it from the horse's mouth. You should hear it from someone who's actually saying it. Because you can hear from us all day long and go, maybe they're, overstating. Maybe they're bloviating. No, let's hear. This is from Shannon Bream's show. Go ahead.
Okay, so then let's go back through some of those then. Abolish the Senate. There are people who are in the Senate now who are very supportive of DSA. They lose their seats?
Well, the Senate is an anachronistic institution. It comes from the British House of Lords. It is made to protect power for, the Senate was part of the system that was made to make sure that the people didn't have too much of a say. So we want to expand Congress significantly, but make it a unicameral legislature.
Okay.
Well, where she's wrong about talking about that, it isn't to make sure that people don't have too much of a say. It's to make sure that we don't have mob rule in this country where the entire country changes on a whim because of what's popular. It actually helps protect minority positions in this country when you have a bicameral legislature, when you have the Senate, which has equal representation for every state, and a House of Representatives, which has representative and proportional representation in the Congress. But then you also have checks on it from the executive, from the legislature. These are things that protect minority opinions in this country and help actually get to a system where you have to compromise. They are talking about zero compromise. They are talking about completely tearing down the foundations of this country. And you say, okay, well, how can you do that? Because our Constitution does protect these things. They're having workshops on how to write a constitution. Here is a quote from the New York City chapter of DSA on a workshop that was titled, How to Write a Constitution. It says, it has become increasingly apparent that the U.S. Constitution exacerbates some of the worst elements of American politics.
There you go.
So they do not want our constitutional system to exist going forward. That is why even when she talks about government ownership of corporations, that is an oligarchy. She is saying it very clearly. And even though it may not be the terms they want to use, because they're trying to say that our system now is an oligarchy, always listen to what they say when they want all corporations owned by the government. And that government is run by, it's going to be a bureaucratic state and an expanded House of Representatives. That is every American losing their rights.
It sounds, as Will said, like a boogeyman scenario. But it's a lot different when you actually start. Look, we're laughing about it a little bit here, but who will be laughing in 5 years? I think that's going to be the question. And you need to be a part of making sure that we're still the ones laughing at it. I encourage you, if you can, to support the work of the ACLJ. These are the kind of topics we'll be taking on, straight on. We got to figure out where we're heading the next few years. Some of these kind of topics feel like the ones where America is going to be at risk the most because it's happening from an internal point of view. And it's happening from a point of view that people seem to like. That's sort of the shocking part, is you probably would play these clips and there's probably a good number of good people in your life that will say, oh yeah, that sounds great. I agree. And they want to start using big words like Will does. They want to start saying anachronistic or bicameral. Okay. Only socialists use those words.
Oh no.
And Will. Who's hiding that really? We don't know. Maybe hiding in plain sight. Maybe in this studio right now.
Are you calling me directly a socialist?
Not directly.
Oh, indirectly.
I'm just asking questions.
Oh no.
I'm just asking questions about, I don't know. I haven't heard the word bicameral used so many times in 5 minutes in my life. Okay. First time for everything. Or what's the singular cameral?
Unicameral.
Unicameral. Okay. That's not even in my vocabulary.
All righty. Well, there you have it. They're nuts. They're nuts. And, I've been talking that. I've been preaching that for years. The Democrats are nuts. And the Democrat Socialists of America are even more nuts. So I wonder how they would get rid of the presidency. I mean, they would have to, based on our system, it would have to be approved by Congress, the House, and the Senate, and the president to remove the president and no longer have a president, remove the Senate and no longer have a Senate. So I wonder how they would go about doing that other than a violent revolution. Who knows? They're Democrats, so their fantasies in their mind become reality. Let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from American Center for Law and Justice. This is the video I shared with you. I've given them a thumbs up, and I hope you do the same thing for me. All righty, let's jump back here and let's see what Steve Turley has to say, Dr. Steve Turley, about Kurdish fighters just did something Iran's generals never expected. Let's talk a little bit about Iran. Talked about some other things here. Let's get back to that.
Panic. As you know, ever since the June 17th Islamabad memorandum collapse, U.S. forces launched strikes on Iran for 13 consecutive nights, hitting command centers, missile and drone storage, coastal radar, and reinstating the naval blockade of Iranian ports to economically strangle them. Trump had been weighing something even bigger, something he described as potentially bigger than ever before, meeting with cabinet officials and repositioning Pentagon assets in the region. But by Friday evening, he pulled back. No strikes were ordered over the weekend, the first pause in the entire 2-week sequence. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Mike Waltz, said Trump is keeping all options on the table and Iranian officials are genuinely divided internally, really not knowing what to do. Some looking to this supposed supreme leader for guidance, others pushing a completely different direction. It's the very kind of internal paralysis that we've seen from the regime from the very beginning, ever since the first strike back on February 28th that killed their Ayatollah Khamenei and their entire IRGC senior leadership. Ever since that day, the regime has been fractured, with various factions trying to gain the upper hand internally. Meanwhile, Iran's own army spokesperson confirmed its retaliatory strikes have indeed paused as well, the first time since the ceasefire initially broke down. And what that means is that we appear to be seeing a similar rationale for this pause as we saw with the previous ceasefire. So that ceasefire, if you remember, had two objectives: to calm the oil markets and bring prices at the pump down here at home, all the while restocking munitions and building up forces in the Gulf region abroad. So in effect, it was a deliberate calm before return to the storm. And given that Iran is holding off on its increasingly limited retaliation, desperate retaliation, it does seem that we'll be seeing a bit of a reprieve at the pump and a continuous buildup in the region. The latter is certainly happening. U.S. troop levels in the Middle East have risen above 50,000, up from the usual 40,000 across Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Qatar, UAE, and Kuwait. And the amphibious assault ship USS Tripoli deploying additional Marines and F-35s in the region, marking the largest regional buildup since the Iraq War. And then there's what Trump posted on Truth Social. So while talks were supposedly getting space to breathe, the president shared a series of AI-generated images, one showing U.S. fighter jets bombing Karg Island, right? That's Iran's ATM. It's their main oil export terminal that handles roughly 90% of its crude. And it's captioned, "Strike on Karg." Now, another AI-generated image shows Trump himself standing on an Iranian tanker with the American flag raised, an Iranian flag tossed aside, captioned, "That's our oil tanker now. I am the captain now," right? Now, don't dismiss this as simple trolling. Make sure you get the regime sees these posts. These posts are psychological warfare in Trump style for sure, and they're absolutely deliberate. And Trump is telegraphing the next move before he makes it. Karg Island, Iran's economic ATM machine, is the target if talks collapse. At least that's what he's threatening. And every time Iran is forced to defend or replace lost capability at Karg, they bankrupt themselves a little bit more. It's the same strategy we've seen all along. Force Iran to bleed resources, defending the one asset that keeps their economy barely breathing, whether or not the U.S. ever actually sets foot on the island. We're bombarding them all the while we're economically choking them out. And that combination is simply unsustainable for the regime in the long run. And then, as if it couldn't possibly get worse for the regime, Ukraine has entered the war. Ukrainian forces carried out long-range drone strikes over the weekend in the Caspian Sea, hitting vessels Kiev says were ferrying military cargo between Iran and Russia. President Zelensky confirmed strikes on the Filanovsky oil platform, 2 sanctioned cargo ships, and a Russian missile boat. Ukraine's ambassador to Israel said flatly that one of those ships was indeed carrying drone and missile components, not civilian cargo like Iran claimed. Iran's foreign minister obviously was livid. He was furious, and he's threatening retaliation against Kiev directly, as if anything even remotely like that could possibly intimidate Ukraine at this point. But it was a reminder of just how isolated Iran is. All the Gulf countries have turned their backs on Iran. China has largely abandoned Iran, and Ukraine has made it known that it's not going to tolerate any nefarious activity in their region involving Russia. Iran really has been effectively alienated from the outside. But what's even worse is what's happening on the inside. And this is where Kurdish fighters come in. This is something the regime never expected. It's going to absolutely blow you away.
Okay, we're going to get past this commercial here. All right.
And Tehran has spent decades keeping that region under heavy military suppression. That tension boiled over in 2025 when nationwide protests broke out in Kurdish cities and provinces. So Kermanshah, Kurdistan, West Azerbaijan observed those protests with severe intensity. By January of this year, Iran's major Kurdish parties, the Kurdistan Democratic Party of Iran, the Kurdistan Freedom Party, and the Kurdistan Free Life Party, and multiple Komala factions, did something they historically struggled to do. They actually unified. They united. They formed the coalition of political forces of Iranian Kurdistan. Their stated goal was explicit: help topple the regime and assume authority in Iranian Kurdistan the moment American military action against Iran began. And on February 28th, that action came. CNN reported, citing multiple sources, that the CIA had indeed been actively arming Kurdish forces specifically to foment a popular uprising inside Iran, with the Trump administration direct talks with Kurdish leaders based in Iraq. By March 7th, Kurdish forces, together with Israeli and U.S. forces, destroyed 40 separate sites in the city of Sanandaj alone, with additional hits across half a dozen other towns, specifically targeting IRGC barracks, intelligence facilities, and border command centers. In fact, it got so intense that reportedly IRGC and border guard units in parts of Kermanshah, the Kermanshah province, they were forced to evacuate their own bases and hide inside civilian buildings like hospitals just to survive the strikes. And this didn't end when the shooting slowed down. Just weeks ago, on July 1st, the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan confirmed that 6 of its own Peshmerga fighters were killed in direct clashes with the IRGC near Piranshah. Fox News also reported IRGC losses in the same stretch of fighting near Mahabad and Pave. Now, officials cautioned against calling this a full-blown Kurdish uprising just yet, but it was clear that this wasn't a routine border skirmish either. Something had clearly shifted. Now, here's the strategic piece that ties every front in this war together. While the IRGC is absorbing U.S. airstrikes in the south, managing the naval blockade in the Gulf, now fending off Ukrainian strikes tied to their Russia supply chain, and suppressing growing unrest in Tehran and Isfahan and Mashhad, they simply don't have the manpower to flood the western mountains and crush the Kurdish uprising the way they historically have. What the IRGC's generals did not anticipate was that this uprising would have the staying power to outlast the war itself, that it would keep killing IRGC personnel months after a ceasefire, and that it would do so with sustained American intelligence backing while Tehran is simultaneously being squeezed from the Gulf and now the Caspian. All of this while Iran can't pay its own troops, keep in mind. With their currency, the rial, in an absolute freefall, that means Iran simply can't hold its western provinces. If IRGC troops don't get paid, they don't fight. And an Iran that can't hold its western provinces cannot maintain the myth of revolutionary invincibility that's kept their regime standing for 47 years. Once that myth cracks in Kurdistan, it doesn't stay in Kurdistan. It spreads to Tehran, to Isfahan, to Mashhad, everywhere. So here's the bottom line, gang. What you're watching right now isn't a pause because the war is ending. It's a pause because Trump is giving Tehran one last chance to fold before Karg Island stops being an AI-generated image and becomes a real target. Meanwhile, Ukraine is bleeding Iran's Russia supply lines in the Caspian, and thousands of Kurdish fighters are still exhausting IRGC manpower in the mountains. Every front Iran has left is stretched thinner than the last, and a regime fighting on 4 fronts faces a certain and inevitable collapse.
All right, well, that's some pretty decent information there. A good update on what's going on over there in the Middle East. Let me click on this Rumble link and show you that this video does come from Dr. Steve Turley.
Iran's foreign minister.
All right. This is the video I shared with you. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. He's at 599 thumbs up. I've got 4, looks like. Maybe I got a couple more. But at any rate, there we go. I got 4. Let's slide down here. Not that I'm jealous or anything. Let's run on here with Wendy Bell Radio American Monster. Okay, well, let's check that out and see what American Monster's all about.
You know, I've told you the story about how as a little girl, I told my parents, it was probably, I don't know, 10 or 11, that I was going to grow up and I was going to be a TV news reporter and anchor. And they were like, that is fabulous, Wendy. You go, girl. Good luck with that. Little did they know that I was serious. And I think that if I were to ask my dad today, he'd probably look back and be like, no, I was pretty sure you were going to get it done. I went to college, graduate school, job 1, job 2, job 3, came to Pittsburgh and had a wonderfully successful and a very meaningful television news broadcasting career. So all that changed about 10 years ago. I was one of the first victims of cancel culture, at least that we were really paying attention to in my section of the country, Pennsylvania. And I was fired because people said I was a racist for saying it's ridiculous that so many people in my community kill each other. And that black people kill black people, white people kill white people, obviously. But the real issue was about this terrible murder in our community, just about half of a mile from the TV station where I worked, and only a few miles from where Joe and I raised our 5 boys. This particular gruesome scene was too much for me, I'll just say. So you can go things weren't getting better in my community. No matter how many Democrat mayors, no matter if they were black or white, came in who talked about what they were going to do. We're going to give opportunity to people. We're going to clean up the streets. We're going to get rid of the gangs. We're going to cut down on the crime. It never happened. And almost always the collateral damage was my black neighbors. It pissed me off. And that day was it. As the cycle would unfold, and to my great benefit, I would be tarred and feathered. I would be excommunicated. I would be persona non grata for some people in my community. But as most stories of wrong turn to clarity and right, the real story of what was going on in this country that I was really just on the beginning of started to unfold. And then we got COVID. And all of that happened. The manipulation, all the ways in which they lied to us, and all of the fake news, and all of the suppressing of information that we needed. It was like there was this big blob around us that no matter what we thought or what we wanted, decided for us. And I'm sorry, but that's not American. And there comes a time in all of our lives, in our chosen fields of things that we care passionately about or thought we did, when we realize that the story has changed. And that it was no longer what I cared about. I was part of a machine. Several years later, I got a call from Newsmax Television offering me a job. I was like, what? I have no intention of getting back into television. And the guy was very insistent. Look, we're going to fly you out. We want to do this. We want to do that. And it just so happened that right around the time of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, I got sent out to fill in for Grant Stinchfield, who had an evening program on the network. And I think they kind of wanted to fly me by and just see how I was, what have you. Look, this is what I do for a living. It's not complicated for me to sit in front of a live television camera. If you give me scripts, great. If you don't, we'll figure it out. It's just not that big of a deal. It's television, for God's sake. That's all that it is, right? And as I was in the green room at Newsmax, and I very much appreciated working there. There's a lot of good people there, a lot of hardworking people, but it's still part of the machine. I remember sitting in the green room, getting ready to get my fake eyelashes on, and Bob Sellers, one of the hosts of a program called American Agenda, all of the people, all of the media personality in the green room were talking about, can you believe Russia and Putin and invading those poor people of Ukraine? And everybody was really up in arms, and they were all chirping out the same story, and everybody was glomming onto each other's words. And I sat there arguably quiet. I didn't know any of them. I had nothing to offer, but I didn't share in their perspective. And apparently my reticence was so obvious that Bob Sellers reached over to me and he was like, hey, so what's your story, Wendy? What's your thought on all this? I don't really hear your thoughts. And I was like, it's been 2 weeks. It's been a week. How do we know really what's going on? I just don't usually believe the media. And they all kind of stopped. It was like, and it was like E.F. Hutton, and everybody stopped and they looked at me and I was like, you guys do? I mean, like, really? I might be the only person here in this company that long ago thought that objectivity, credibility, actual hard work, and informing the public, I knew that left my industry a long time ago. The only reason, quite frankly, I'm getting back into it is just because I want to see how bad it is. And I worked for several years for Newsmax, but I saw and was so disappointed. Here's a conservative program, and all of the reporters are glomming onto the same story. I'm like, where's your critical thought process? Where are you stepping back, hitting the brakes, and being like, whoa, we've been through this before. This is exactly on the heels of it. This is exactly on the heels of that election. It was right before in 2022, and they all fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. And I was like, for the love of all that is holy, my industry is dead. And now I choose clips, not necessarily from TV shows that I want to elevate, but individual independent journalists who, much like my story, had a journey where they had to make a decision and they had to step away from the machine. The machine does not tell you the truth. The machine tells you what to think and how to think. It doesn't give you facts so you can decide for yourself. We are getting to that critical discovery phase of this theatrical performance called whatever the hell we're going through, with Fauci on the hot seat and these emails coming out and millions of illegal aliens and how many are on the jury pools. And oh my gosh, how long have they been voting? You're going to also, if you haven't already in your respective field, had frying pan to the moment you realized everything that you thought you were in it for never really existed. And it's kind of lonely. But it's not. Tomorrow, we get to watch. And I hope he is sweating bombs. I hope whatever little nervous tick he has as he is with a rubber band or some kind of a paper clip, whatever his little nervous tick is, that Tony Fauci feels the ire and the loathing, the collective disdain and pity of not just the United States of America, but the freaking world. And I hope it is crushing on him, irrespective of what he says, and completely not even thinking about any sort of punishment. He is ruined. Fauci is ruined. He is now that asterisk in the World Book Encyclopedia after his name. That's all it says. And you've got to scroll down to the bottom key. What's that mean? Oh, disgraced. It's coming for all of them, ladies and gentlemen. It's coming for Obama. It's coming for Bill and Hillary. It's coming for their orbit. It's coming for the media who are bought and paid for by China. It's coming for our elections who have been controlled by China. This is that moment you've been waiting for, where that really uncomfortable feeling like I had in the green room at Newsmax on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, that made me feel a little uncomfortable that I was the only one that saw. Everything they were doing was a total joke. When we come back on the Wendy Bell radio program, Harry Enton's super surprised today. He's like, so we've asked a bunch of Democrats a question. A bunch of people a question about Democrats. I can't believe how they answered. And you're like, what? Wait for this. It's brilliant. Democrats aren't looking good. Next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
Well, yeah, I could have told you that. The Democrats don't look good, but we'll see what Harry Enton has to say.
That Enton didn't over one terms. One,
Here we go.
I personally find it very enjoyable when people out there are worrying about, oh my gosh, Democrats are going to take back the House. In what world? Honestly, I don't mean to sound overly confident, but like, I don't even need to shake my magic 8-ball to read this one. I mean, you have no money. You're broke. You've had to borrow against the value in your headquarters to get a loan to limp through the midterms. You've got socialists as your party, essentially, who are communists. And everything that you espouse is crazy and off the left charts of nutbag. And we're worried that in Realville, in Common Sense America, where we believe that toddlers can't choose their own gender, that we're going to be the ones on the losing side of this. I'm sorry, but America is awakening in a way that I'm not so sure the Democrats expected. Harry Enton didn't over at CNN. He's like, what? He takes a total buzzsaw to the Democrats' hopes of regaining control of the House in the midterms. And he's like, look, this is a huge shocker to me. People just don't trust Democrats regarding what they say about Iran. You mean they're lying to us about that entire military offensive, how it's going and why it's important? Shut up.
So you think that Democrats, or you might think that Democrats in Congress could see some kind of boost in the polls on this subject. You might think that, but you'd be wrong. With us this morning, CNN Chief Data
Whatever, man.
I'm tongue-tied because actually these numbers surprise me. I was looking at them and I am surprised that they are like this. So who do the voters say they trust on Iran?
Johnny B is not the only one who's surprised. You would be looking at all the news coverage. You'd be looking at all the polling on President Trump, and you would think that Democrats would be able to take advantage and be dominating Republicans when it comes to who is trusted to handle the Iran war. That, simply put, is not the case at all. I mean, these numbers are quite surprising. Trust Dems or Republicans on Iran. According to CNBC earlier this month, you'd think, okay, that's one poll. The Republicans trusted by 2 points. But then CBS News comes out yesterday, and what do you see? You see the exact same thing. Trump and the Republicans take the cake. They are trusted by 2 points on Iran. Now, one poll is one thing, but you put the two of them together, and you can see that the American people, simply put, are not buying what Democrats are selling on Iran. They still trust Republicans more, even if you look at President Trump's approval ratings on the subject, and they're negative too, but yet Republicans and Trump still more trusted than Democrats are in Iran.
I mean, does that... of course, we would be not surprised by that. I'm not surprised by that. They tried to tell us how woeful the president's approval is. Well, among those of us who voted for him, it's like 98%. So I'm not really worried about what everybody else is thinking, as long as we're in the majority, which is why they need all of these people to come in and vote, to flush you out of the majority. Harry Soundbite number 2, he's like, so how has this changed over time? John Berman asks, like this whole trust thing regarding Democrats. Well, I know, code red, shocker alert. It's gotten worse for Democrats. Things have gotten better for Republicans. Go figure.
This is even more surprising, right? You might think, okay, as the war has gone on and on and on, you might think, hey, the Democrats would be gaining ground in terms of trust that the American people would give them on Iran. If anything, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. Trust Democrats or Republicans more on Iran. In April, according to a Washington Post Ipsos poll, the Democrats were more trusted by 2 points. Again, close margin, no clear leader. But look where the shift has been. If anything, the shift has been in the Republican direction. Now the Republicans and Donald Trump are trusted more by 2 points on Iran. So again, over the course of the war, if anything, the Republicans have been the ones that have been gaining ground, which I think just goes so opposed to all of the news coverage that we have seen so far and all of, the media. You would think, hey, but no, the American people are actually trusting the Republicans and Trump, if anything, more now than they were, so let's say, halfway through the war.
That is more, I believe, damning for the media than it is for the Democrats. I mean, think about the constant flow of bad information about anything this president does. They can't even come out and give him a solid on the Trump accounts, which undoubtedly will be a complete game changer for America's babies in the next 18 years. Can't even say, wow, this is a huge outside the box idea. This is very interesting. They can never give him even the slightest and most, even smallest deserving victory. Huh. No wonder people are fed up. And finally, the anchor guy, John Berman, asks Harry Enton the best question of the day. Ouch.
Possible is it that part of this is just that Americans don't like Democrats in Congress much at all?
Yeah, I think this is a big part of it. The Democratic Party in the minds of the American public are weak, to quote the great Tony Blair. I mean, just look at this. Just look at these net approval ratings of Democrats in Congress. In late February, at the beginning of the war, it was minus 41 points, minus 39, minus 39. And so you're just looking at these numbers right here, and you go to yourself, no wonder what's going on at this point, that Democrats simply put cannot take the ball and run with it and actually in the polls be trusted more than run, because the Democrats in Congress simply put are not well liked. In fact, these are the three lowest on record in terms of percentage points for the approval for Democrats in Congress. So it all puts together a picture. Donald Trump and Republicans may not be liked, but Democrats in Congress are really hated.
A lot of this is D crime. I mean, there are Democrats who are unhappy with their own party, who Democrats hope might vote for them anyway in November.
You know, it'd be much easier if they were, actually liked.
Okay, I'm kind of confused here. I'm going to back this up just a bit. So what do these numbers represent? Minus 41, minus... Does that mean from 100%, their approval rating now is only 61%? Is that what that means? I mean, what the hell? Minus 39 from what? Because I've heard their approval rating is only around like 21 or 23%, something like that. I don't understand. If you know, folks, in the chat or in the comment, whatever, let me know what this minus 41 and minus 39, because a minus 41 from 100, that's a plus 51% or 59%, and that's a plus 61% favorable. What's minus 31 from? What does that mean? All right, let's get back.
Actually liked. You know what helps? If you show up to a Senate hearing about fraud and abuse, to which no Senate Democrats did. You know what helps is that when you do show up to hearings, you're not obstreperous, rude, reclaiming my time, or with stupid Mazie Hirono questions. Has anybody ever accused you of sexual assault? I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about the coronavirus. Maybe if you get fewer people who hate Trump and more people who love America, amazing what might just happen for the Democratic Party. But don't worry, Republicans, that won't ever happen, because resist is all these people know how to do. So is it willful blindness, or is the silence, silence of co-conspirators? Why did none of the legacy media report on Tony Fauci's diary? Next on the Wendy Bell Radio Network.
All right, well, let's go ahead and pause this, and we'll get into that diary here in my daily news wrap-up, because I will include this video there. But let's click on the Rumble link here, and let me show you that this video does come from Wendy Bell Radio. This is the video I shared with you. I've given her a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, before we go any further, we've got some great chats today. Let me go ahead and copy these into a comment so that they will be a permanent part of this video. I think it's important that people know what we talk about when they come here to Murtech.com. Okay, and these videos that I've shared with you here are videos that come directly from the producers. And I have the producer's description and the link to the video in the description box, as well as the link to the producer's channel. Now, I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but down here, I plug Wendy Bell and X22 Report and Dan Bongino and ACLJ and what is this? Oh, Bongino Report. So it's a little hard to see. But if you click on any of these links here, it's going to take you to like a Rumble search for Wendy Bell. Okay, right there, Wendy Bell. All right. And then you come back and you search, like, click on X22. It's going to take you there to like a Rumble search for X22 report. So, I'm plugging these channels that I share with you. And these channels here, these videos that I've shared with you today, are videos that I've posted here on Murtech.com. All right. I have over 40 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. Here's the Wendy Bell video that I shared with you. Okay. On up here, there's Dr. Steve Turley, the video I shared with you from him. Dan Bongino, there's his video. ACL, this is all in alphabetical order. ACLJ Sekulow, right here. The link to Murtech.com is in the description box also. So you can come here. It's a free site. I don't ask for your name. I don't ask for your email address. I don't drop cookies on your computer or pop a bunch of ads up in your face. It's strictly to provide information, no nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth. Your one-stop shop for information that you're not going to get on the mainstream media. Now, I'd like to share all of this information with you, but unfortunately, I don't have the time. But I have put together my daily news, Murtech's daily news wrap-up, where we're going to finish up on Wendy Bell radio video, and the Dan Bongino Show, that video. We're going to finish up on that. Get into some X22 report, We the People News, On the Fringe, Steve Day's show, And We Know, AP for Liberty, the Sean Spicer Show. Great information here. It says we have 21 videos in my playlist, about 9 or 10 hours worth of great information. So in the meantime, go ahead and take a break. Grab a cup of coffee and a donut or a glass of wine and some cheese, and meet me back here in about 15 or 20 minutes. Get this set up in Rumble Studio, and we'll take off from there. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for being here. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.